I hope you're doing well today. Appreciate you joining us for another look into God's Word. Today it is May 3rd. We are in First Chronicles. First Chronicles chapter 23. We have here, yesterday we spoke about David's unlawful census and then the preparations to build the temple. Here in First Chronicles chapter 23, you have as David is aged, and he makes Solomon king over Israel. And in these few chapters, let's just take a look at them briefly. David organizing the Levites. And I'm just going to scroll slowly through as you see where they, sons of Moses and Levi, and talks about the sons of Amram there, as Aaron was set apart, there in verse 13. And you have the Levitical duties, as the Levites were numbered. And all of this is in preparation, of course. But, I mean, the tabernacle had already been in place, obviously, for some time. But we're moving towards the temple. David organizing the priests. And this is somewhat, of course, Moses and Aaron were far long time before David. So some of this is just how things were and making sure things are how they should be, I suppose. But you just have this organization that is happening. But we'll come back to some of these verses here in just a moment. The musicians being organized, and all of these things being done. And it's just those three chapters. So now you're probably wondering, okay, what are we going to talk about today then? Those chapters most people just sort of gloss over and move on. But that's our reading for today. So what points might we make? Well, I thought one might simply be this. It reminds me of the passage in the New Testament about let all things be done decently and in order. And I think what you see in all this is that is the nature of God. And you see this in these lists where this is how things are being done decently and in order. That God likes orderliness. And these things, and David isn't shooting from the hip here. These things are being commanded by God. So these things, it is God who defines what is decent and orderly as well. But this is what is pleasing to the Lord. Here in the Old Testament, this is how the Lord is prescribing worship. And so we see the nature of God. He is decently and in order. Another thing I wanted you to see, and to just back up and look at it. And let's think about chapter 22 closed with, you're going to build the temple. But then chapter 23 is, it's all about the people. And I thought we might make that point that the building is one thing, and not to say, obviously, and I'm thinking of a New Testament passage, which is, swearing by the gold on the altar, that passage. The temple is one thing, but if the people aren't what they should be, then nothing is as it should be. The temple is one thing. It's like, okay, Solomon, you're gonna build the physical building. But there's also a spiritual building that needs to happen. Right? The building is one thing. Okay, I'm glad now it's time to build that. But the people need to be what they need to be. And that's something that sometimes folks forget. That sometimes people get caught up in the facade. Sometimes people get caught up in the building and they get caught up in the physical, and they neglect the spiritual. I mean, it's okay. It's time to build a building. All right, build a temple. But let's build the people. The third thing I wanted you to see is just that this picture, obviously, of roles. All through these chapters you have these roles. And I think that's a good lesson for us, that we have roles. In the New Testament, and I understand the context is more the spiritual gifts, but it talks about the hand and the mouth and the eyes and the nose. Roles. We have our roles to play. When Paul is talking to one of the young preachers and he talks about sound doctrine, that the older men do this and the younger men do this and the older women do this and the younger women do this. Roles. That we have our roles to play, and we need to make sure we are playing our roles. And I wanted to leave you with, I thought it was interesting, in talking about the musicians in chapter 25. I thought it was interesting, and I just I just thought it was frankly a beautiful passage to look at this. And it's verse 6. All these were under the direction of their father for the music in the house of the Lord, with cymbals, stringed instruments, harps, for the service of the house of God. Asaph, Jeduthun, all those individuals, under the authority of the king. Verse 7. So the number of them with their brethren, who were instructed in the songs of the Lord, all who were skillful, was 288. And they cast their lots for their duty, the small as well as the great, the teacher with the student. So not only do we see the roles, but we see how the roles, we see the teachers with the students. You see the ones who are skilled teaching the younger. And sometimes we lose sight of that. That's one of the roles that we have to have. That we are committing this to others who can also do it, who will also be able to do it. We are equipping them so that they can do it, frankly, when we're not here, when we're gone. That you have the teachers, even in the musicians and all the others, you have this generational pass down that's happening. The teachers with the students, helping them, teaching them, and then the cycle just continues. And I just like that passage. I'd never noticed it before. The teachers with the students. So anyway, hope this brief look into God's Word has been helpful for you. Hope you're having a good day. Appreciate you. Hope you join us for our next brief meditation. Thanks for being with us today.